Hi everyone, I'm Claire from Susan's family. Today I'm sharing with you a cardigan named Peach Blossom Shuitian from our So collection. For this electronic tutorial, please search for our website by the keyword en.sussudiy.com. This cardigan consists of the back body, the front body, the edging, the sleeves and some decorations. Complete the back body and the front body first. Then sew them together and crochet the edging. Next, knit and sew the sleeves together. Finally, attach the decorations. First, let's learn how to make the back body. It's divided into two sections, the body and the shoulder area. We'll work from the bottom up. Now, let's learn the body section. Read the chart first. We'll begin with cable cast on. When casting on and knitting, you'll need to switch colors. A horizontal line indicates a purl stitch. An empty square indicates a knit stitch. Different colors symbolize different color schemes. The fabric is worked back and forth. The chart represents the texture of the right side. When actually knitting, check the chart for how to work a certain symbol on the wrong side. Now, let me demonstrate the specific knitting technique. First of all, let's cast on. To make it clearer for everyone, I'll use a strand of cotton yarn for the demonstration. When actually knitting, you need to work with two strands of yarn held together. Take a look at this. A ball has two ends, one from the center and one from the outside. You can combine these two ends. For specific yarn choices, color schemes, and needle sizes, please refer to the details pages and the charts of our product. This cardigan requires 3 colors. We'll call the most dominant color, color 1. The other 2 contrasting colors will be referred to as color 2 and color 3. In the order of knitting, during the knitting process, you might encounter situations that the same color stitches are far apart. You need to work with multiple yarn tail at once. When working on a large area, you can knit directly from the ball of yarn. For the smaller area, or there's only one ball for a particular color, you can pre-wrap a quarter of the yarn into a small bobbin as backup. Be mindful when wrapping the yarn. You should combine 2 strands together to create the bobbin. When you encounter the need for multiple yarn tail of the same color, you can create the bobbin according to the actual situation. Since there are too much stitches, you'll need to switch colors when casting on. We use a circular needle for this. Read the chart from left to right. Take out color 2. Since the section for color 2 isn't large, you can use the bobbin for knitting. Tie a slip knit with the yarn. Loop it onto the circular needle. Pick up the other end of the circular needle with your right hand. Insert it through the loop. Knit 1. Slide the loop back onto the left needle. Then, insert the needle between these 2 stitches from front to back. Knit 1 again. Slide it back onto the left needle. Continue casting on in this way. Finish the remaining stitches with this color. Once done, you need to switch colors. You can secure the bobbin like this. To avoid the bobbin becoming loose. Now, take a bobbin of color 3. Leave about 10 centimeters tail. Tie a knot around color 2. Pull the knot all the way down to the last stitch of color 2. The yarn is joined. When you need to join new yarn as you work, or if the yarn tail runs out, you can join it in this way, whether you're joining from the right side or the wrong side. Make sure the knot and yarn tail are kept on the wrong side of the fabric. I won't repeat this again. Hold color 3 with your right hand. Leave the end of color 2 at the wrong side. Unattended for now, continue casting on with color 3. Until finish the corresponding stitches. Once done, switch back to color 2. First, secure the bobbin of color 3 as well. Then, take a new bobbin of color 2. Follow the same method to switch color. Also leave the end of color 3 at the wrong side. Unattended for now, finish the remaining stitches with color 2. And there you have it. The casting on is done. You have quite a number of stitches and bobbins here. Be careful not to let the loops on both sides come loose. Keep your bobbin organized, avoid tangling them together. Now, let's knit row 1. This row will be worked on the right side of the fabric. Read the chart from right to left. Begin the first stitch with color 1. Color 1 will cover a larger area here. You can use a small bobbin or a large ball. Join the new yarn on color 2. Knit 1 with color 1. Once done, switch to color 2 for the next part. Position color 2 underneath color 1. Bring color 2 up and put it above color 1 from right to left. Knit 1. That's how we trap the previous yarn. At the edge, you'll see a small knot from color 2. Place color 1 at the wrong side after being trapped. Leave it for now. Continue knitting the corresponding number of stitches with color 2. My sample has fewer stitches here. It can't be reference. When finished, join the new color 1. Check the chart. This area of color 1 is very small. You can cut about a meter of yarn for this area. Knit 1 with this color 1. Then switch to color 2 and knit 2. Make sure to trap color 1. Bring color 1 up and put it above. Color 2 from right to left. Knit 1 with color 2. Color 1 has been trapped. Gently stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn. To avoid shrinkage, kint the next stitch with color 2. Next, you'll need to work with color 1 again. Since the gap here is short, you can continue with this color 1. Simply carry color 1 across to here. Don't tighten the carried yarn too much, otherwise, the fabric could shrink. Remember to trap the yarn. Place the previous color 2 above color 1. Knit 1. Gently stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn to keep the fabric flat. Now, switch back to color 2 and knit the corresponding stitches. Remember to trap color 1 as you change. Place the previous color 1 above color 2. Knit 1. Stretch the fabric again. Color 1 has been trapped. Continue knitting the remaining stitches. While knitting, if the yarn tail is too short, you can release the bobbin like this. Pull about 1 meter of yarn tail out. Then, tie a new knot to secure. Whenever you find the yarn tail is too short to knit, follow this method and release about 1 meter of yarn. Then tie a knot again. I won't repeat this again. Next, we need to switch to color 1. The gap here from the previous color 1 becomes longer, so we use another 1 meter of color 1. To knit 1. Then, switch to color 2 and knit 2. Trap color 1 as you knit. Gently stretch the fabric. After that, switch back to color 1 and knit 1. Trap color 2 as well. Knit the corresponding number of stitches with color 2. Trap this color 1. Once completed, you'll need to switch back to color 1. We notice that this area with color 1 is quite extensive. You can use a bobbin or even a larger ball for this part. Join this new color 1. Knit 2. Then switch to the reserved color 3 and knit the corresponding stitches. Remember to trap the previous yarn. Let's examine the rule here. When the gap between the same color is less than 3 stitches, we use the same yarn to work. If gap is greater than 3, we take a new yarn. According to the color area, when joining the yarn, choose the appropriate bobbin of yarn based on the area to be knitted, or cut a small length of yarn to work with. Every time you switch the color, you need to trap the previous yarn and gently stretch the fabric and trapped yarn. To help keep the fabric flat, follow this rule and refer to the previous demonstration. Follow the chart to finish this row. Join a new bobbin of color 1 at the last stitch. If the final loop is quite large, gently pull the starting yarn tail to tighten. Row 1 is now completed. There are 12 yarn tails on the fabric now. As you knit, yarn tails may tangle. Be sure to move the bobbins in time to keep them separate. Move on to row 2. We work this row on the wrong side, so we read the chart from left to right. Remember, the chart shows the texture of the right side of the piece, so you need to check the stitches that you'll need on the wrong side. Turn the fabric over to the wrong side and transfer the beginning to your left hand. Hang the yarn on your right hand. The first symbol indicates a purl stitch, but on the wrong side. You need knit 1 with color 1. Since there was no yarn trapped when you switched colors in the last row, before you start knitting here, you need to carry color 2 from right to left and place it above color 1. Then knit. Gently stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn. The following symbol indicates a knit stitch, but on the wrong side. Purl. Switch to color 2 and purl the corresponding number of stitches. Before starting, you need to trap color 1. Place color 1 from right to left above color 2. Purl 1. Gently stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn. The trapping process is done. Finish the remaining stitches. Then switch back to color 1 and purl 4. Don't forget to trap color 2. Place color 2 over color 1. Purl 1. Stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn slightly. For the following rows on the wrong side, always trap the yarn in the same way. Purl the remaining 3 stitches. Once done, you'll need to switch back to color 2. Here's a gap of more than 3 stitches between this point and the previous color 2 yarn tail. You can join a new bobbin. To purl the corresponding number of stitches. When you're done, switch to color 1 and purl 4. Don't forget to trap color 2 again. Always remember to trap the previous yarn when you switch the color. I won't repeat again. Now, you need to switch back to color 2. Join another new bobbin. To purl the corresponding number of stitches. When finished, switch to color 1 and purl 2. Then, change to color 3 and purl the corresponding number of stitches. Let's take a look at the fabric. On the wrong side, except the first and last stitch, all the others are worked in purl. And remember to change colors at the corresponding positions. The rule is same as the right side. Don't forget to trap the previous yarn when changing colors. Also, gently stretch the fabric and the trapped yarn in time to keep the fabric flat. Continue following this rule all the way down until you reach the second to last stitch. Here we are. Switch to color 1 and knit 1. Trap color 2 first. Then, bring color 1 back below the right needle. Knit. That completes row 2. Move on to row 3. This row is worked on the right side. Knit all stitches in this row. Turn the fabric over. Follow the chart. Refer to the demonstrated rule. Change colors at the corresponding positions. When you reach where color 3 should be, add a bobbin of color 3 yarn. Finish last 2 stitches with color 1. Don't forget to trap color 2. Row 3 is completed. Proceed to row 4. Work this row on the wrong side. Knit the first stitch with color 1. Then, purl 2. From there, purl all stitches except for the last one, which should also be a knit stitch. Change colors at the corresponding positions. Finish this row. Row 4 is now finished. Take a look at the fabric. This pattern has all knit stitches on the right side and all purl stitches on the wrong side. We call it stockinette stitch. Move on to row 5. Turn the workpiece over. Knit 3 in color 1. Then, knit the corresponding number of stitches with color 2. Check your work after completing this row. You won't need this color 2 anymore. Leave a 10 cm tail before cutting it. Now, knit 6 in color 1. Before you start, make sure to trap color 2. Tie 2 knots with the cut color 2 at the base of the color 1. Pull it tight. The end of color 2 is now secured. Finish the remaining stitches. Switch to color 2 for the next part. Knit the corresponding number of stitches. Then, cut the yarn. Switch back to color 1 and knit 6. Trap color 2. Tie 2 knots with the cut color 2 at the base of the color 1. Give it a slight pull to tighten. Whenever you need to cut the yarn in the future, follow this method. When breaking the yarn, trap the tail once during the transition. Then, tie a knot at the base of the new yarn to secure it. Attention! Whether you're cutting the yarn on the right side or on the wrong side, make sure the yarn tails and knots are kept on the wrong side of the fabric. I won't repeat this again. Finish the remaining stitches. Switch to color 2 and work the corresponding stitches. Then, switch back to color 1 and knit. Let's take a look at the fabric. Follow the pattern chart of intarsia knitting. While working, if a yarn won't be needed again, feel free to cut it off promptly. Then trap the yarn end. While switching the color, finish the rest of the row with this technique. Row 5 is now completed. Move on to row 6. Refer to the chart. Work until reaching the second area of color 1. Here we are. Here, the color 1 yarn tail is close to the working position. You can simply carry it through to continue knitting. Be careful not to pull the carried yarn too tightly to keep the fabric flat. Follow the same color changing method as before. Complete this row. Row 6 is now finished. From row 7 to row 26. Refer to the chart and finish them all. Cut color 1 for those small areas in row 7. In row 8, add color 3 at the corresponding positions. Also, cut a tail about 1 meter long. In row 9, add color 2 at the corresponding positions. You can use the leftover bobbins. In row 12, fasten off the corresponding color 2. Be careful, there are many yarn tails. Make sure to leave the color 2 you'll need for later. Double check before cutting. Cut color 3 for those small areas in row 14. In rows 25 and 26. Between these diamond patterns in color 1. Even though there are fewer stitches, we still switch the yarn at each position. As before. Refer to the chart to complete them all. Now, work on row 27. Knit the indicated stitches with color 1. Switch to color 2 and knit 1. While knitting, trap color 1. Since color 2 won't be needed anymore, simply cut it off. Then, switch to the color 1 on the left for the next stitches. Trap the cut color 2. Tie a knot with color 2 at the base of color 1. Finish the remaining stitches. Complete this row as instructed. With this method, row 27 is completed. Move on to row 28. Purl the indicated stitches with color 1. Now, you need to switch to color 3. Join a bobbin of color 3. Purl 1. Then, switch back to color 1 at this position, and purl the corresponding number of stitches. While knitting, trap color 3. Finish this row. Follow this method. Row 28 is now finished. From row 29 to row 40. Complete the intarsia pattern. Refer to the chart. Begin knitting the flower on the left. In row 41, you'll need to join color 1 for it. Let me demonstrate with this small sample. The stitch count here is random. This demonstration focuses on the technique only. Since the area to be knitted is quite large, you can use a bobbin. Knit 2. Then switch to color 3 for the rest stitches. According to the chart, you can see that color 1 is needed on the left side for the next row. It's positioned a bit away from the yarn tail. If you don't want to reattach a new yarn, you'll need to carry color 1 along as you knit. Knit 3 with color 3. Trap color 1 here. Knit another 3 stitches. Trap color 1 again. Knit the remaining stitches. Stretch the fabric and the carried yarn slightly. Now, color 1 is in its correct position. Continue finishing the rest of the stitches with the established rule. Row 41 is now completed. From row 42 to row 51. Knit the intarsia pattern according to the chart. You can notice that on these two diamond patterns, the petals are spaced further apart. You can join new bobbins, or about 1 meter of yarn tails, for row 46 and row 47. The technique was demonstrated before. Refer to the previous demonstration. Finish them all. Continue with row 52. Start with color 1. Then switch to color 3. According to the chart, the position of color 1 in this row is on the left, a bit away from the yarn tail. When you reach the yarn tail, carry the yarn tail to the correct position. By trapping color 1 as you knit. Then switch colors again to continue knitting. When you need to change colors, but the yarn tail is quite far away, and you don't want to join a new yarn, follow this technique. Just carry the yarn tail to its proper spot before knitting. I won't repeat this again. With this method, refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern. Be mindful in row 54. When you reach the top of the diamond pattern in color 1, don't cut it off. Trap the yarn and leave it on the wrong side of the fabric. When working row 55 and row 56, leave color 1 on the wrong side until you finish row 56. I'll demonstrate row 57 with this sample. The first stitch will use color 1. Simply pick up the reserved color 1 from below. Knit 1. Be mindful not to pull the carrying yarn too tight or too loose. Keep the fabric flat. As you knit, gently trap color 3. Then switch to color 3 and work the intarsia pattern. Continue until you reach the end of this diamond pattern. Here we are. Switch back to the reserved color 1 here and knit 2. Don't pull the carrying yarn too tightly as well. Trap color 3 as you knit. Then switch to color 2 and work the corresponding number of stitches. Make sure to trap color 1. Follow this method and finish this row. Row 57 is now completed. For the remaining part of the body, You'll knit stockinette stitch back and forth. At the same time, switch colors for the intarsia patterns. Whenever you change colors, trap the yarn end you're switching from. Gently tug on the fabric and the yarn you've trapped to keep the fabric flat. During the knitting process, if the number of stitches worked with the same color are less than 3 stitches, there's no need to switch yarn tail. If the skipped stitches are more than 3, depending on the situation, you need to carry the yarn along every 2 to 3 stitches. For a neat appearance, you can also leave the yarn behind the fabric. Don't have to carry the yarn. Join a new yarn end at the appropriate spot and continue knitting. While working this row, you need consider the placement of colors for the next row as well. With multiple bobbins, make sure to tidy them up regularly. Avoid tangling. Refer to the previous demonstration and follow the chart to complete the remaining part of the body. Remember to stop after knitting the specified number of stitches on the last row. During the knitting process, we need mark the sewing points on both sides of the piece. I'll demonstrate how to do this with this small sample. Knit 1. Once done, insert a stitch marker into the loop on the right needle. Then, follow the chart to knit the intarsia pattern in this row. When you're done, place a stitch marker in the last loop of the row. And that completes this row. These 2 markers indicate where we should stop sewing the front and back body. Moving forward, if the chart indicates a spot for a marker, mark those spots like this. Up to this point, the tutorial for the back body is done. Next, we'll work on the shoulders. Let's take a look at the finished product. According to its worn on, there are 2 separate shoulder sections. You'll need to leave some stitches unworked and not continue knitting upward from the middle. Instead, you'll proceed separately on both sides. Start with the left shoulder. As you knit, decrease stitches along the neckline edge to shape the back neck. We'll use the German short rows to create the diagonal shoulder seam. Then, join the new yarn and symmetrically knit the right shoulder. The new stitch techniques involved are a double stitch and binding off. Now, let me demonstrate the process. First, row 1. Since this sample has fewer stitches and rows, I only demonstrate the method. Starting from where the body ends, leave the loops on the left needle untouched. Work on the wrong side of the fabric. Turn the workpiece over. Make a double stitch, regardless of whether the loop is in stockinette or reverse stockinette. Place the right needle under the yarn. Slip the first stitch purlwise without working it. Then, pull the yarn to the back tightly. You'll see 2 loops formed above the right needle. This is the double stitch. Next, refer to the chart and work the corresponding color pattern. Continue until you reach the designated stopping point. Row 1 is finished. Move on to row 2. Turn the workpiece over. The first 4 stitches on the chart indicate binding off. There are already left loops on the right needle from previous rows. Switch to color 2. Start with a slip stitch. The fabric here has a stockinette stitch texture. Position the right needle above the yarn. Slip the stitch knitwise without working it. Now, slip the loop on the right over this loop. That's the first binding off. Knit 1. Slip the right loop over the left one. This is the second binding off. For the third stitch, switch to color 1. Knit 1. Trap color 2. Bind off one stitch. That's the third stitch. Color 2 won't be used from now on. Cut the yarn normally. Tie 2 knots close to the base of color 1. Knit 1 with color 1. Bind off. Now we have bound off 4 stitches. Then, refer to the chart and work the intarsia pattern. Stop when you reach the corresponding position in the pattern. The row 2 is finished. Move on to the third row. Turn the workpiece over. Make a double stitch. You all use color 3 when actually knitting. Cut the yarn after completing the required number of stitches. Then switch to color 1. This sample has fewer stitches, so I only use color 1 here. Purl 1 with color 1. Until the last one before the bound stitches. Row 3 is now completed. Proceed to row 4. Start with a slip stitch. Bind off one stitch. Knit 1. Bind off another stitch. 2 stitches have been bound off. Knit the corresponding number of stitches with color 1, then stop. Row 4 is finished. Move on to row 5. Begin with a double stitch. Follow with purl stitches until the last one before the bound stitches. Row 5 is now done. Continue with row 6. The first stitch is binding off. The second one indicates a slip stitch. Slip the stitch knitwise. Bind off one stitch. That completes the first 2 stitches. Knit the next stitches until the corresponding position. Stop. Row 6 is finished. Proceed to row 7. Begin with a double stitch. Purl until the last stitch before the last loop. Work a knit stitch in the last loop. Row 7 is now completed. For row 8, knit them all. Stop at the corresponding position. In row 9, make a double stitch for the first. The last one is a knit stitch, and the others are purl stitches. Finish these 2 rows on your own. Move on to row 10. Knit all the loops on your left needle. When you encounter the double stitch, knit these 2 loops together. Row 10 is now completed. Proceed to row 11. Knit the first and last stitch. For the rest of the loops, work in the purl stitch. Finish this row. Row 11 is finished. Leave about 10 centimeters of yarn before cutting. Now for the remaining loops in the middle. Pick up an equivalent number for the neck, then hold. Cut a length of waste yarn and thread it into a sewing needle. Thread the needle into the loops on the left needle. To release them, this sample has fewer stitches here. Remove the sewing needle. Tie the 2 yarn ends together in a slip knot. So, all the loops for the middle of the collar are now threaded with the yarn end. Take a look. This is the held stitch for the collar of the sample, and this is how it will look when the left shoulder is completed. Up to this point, the tutorial for the left shoulder is done. Next, we'll work on the right shoulder. It will be symmetrical to the left one. Any unused yarn ends in the middle? Leave about 10 centimeters before cutting them off. Let's start with the first row. This row is worked on the wrong side of the fabric. Tie a slip knot with color 2. In this sample, the contrasting colors are random. Take out the fabric. Hold the fabric with the wrong side facing you. Insert the right needle from back to front through the loop on the left needle. Place the loop from the slip knot onto the right needle. Hang the yarn around your right hand. Draw the yarn through. Release the loop on the left needle. Gently pull to tighten. Make sure this knot is on the wrong side of the work. The first stitch is done. Continue purling the pattern according to the chart. Finish the required number of stitches. Row 1 is completed. Move on to row 2. Turn the workpiece over. For the first stitch, work a double stitch. Then follow the chart to work the intarsia pattern. Keep going until you have one loop left before the end. Row 2 is finished. Proceed to row 3. Turn the workpiece over. Use color 2 when actually knitting. The first 4 stitches in the chart represent binding stitches. Start with a slipped stitch. The texture here on the fabric is stockinette stitch. Place the right needle underneath the yarn. Slip that stitch purlwise, from back to front. The slipped stitch is done. Bind off one stitch. That's the first binding stitch. Purl another one. Bind off. That's the second one. Purl one more. Bind off. The third stitch is finished. For the fourth stitch, we need to switch colors. Switch to color 1, purl 1. While knitting, trap color 2 slightly. Bind off. Now we've bound off 4 stitches. We won't be using this yarn anymore. Cut the yarn. Secure the yarn tail. Refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern. Work the required number of stitches. Row 3 is now completed. Move on to row 4. Work a double stitch for the first stitch. Then, refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern. Keep going until you have one loop left before the end. In this sample, I use color 1 throughout. Row 4 is finished. Proceed with row 5. The first 2 stitches represent binding stitch. Slip 1 stitch purlwise. Bind off. Purl 1 again. Bind off. Purl the rest of the stitches. In stockinette stitch. Row 5 is finished. Move on to row 6. Work a double stitch. Knit until the last loop before the end. Row 6 is finished. Proceed to row 7. The first 2 stitches again indicate a binding and slip stitch symbol. Slip 1. Bind off. Purl the rest of the stitches. In stockinette stitch, then stop. Row 7 is now completed. Work on row 8. Work a double stitch. Knit all remaining stitches. Row 8 is completed. For row 9, start with a knit stitch. Purl the corresponding number of stitches, then stop. Row 9 is finished. On row 10, begin with a double stitch. Knit the rest of the row. The final row. Knit the first and last stitch. Purl the remaining ones. Complete this row. When you encounter the double stitch, work 2 loops together in a purl stitch. That finishes this row. Leave a tail about 80 centimeters long. Cut the yarn. And that's how you knit the right shoulder seam. Up to this point, we've completed the tutorial for the back body. Now, let's move on to the front piece. Take a look at the finished product. The front piece is divided into 2 pieces, according to the left and right sides. When wearing, the techniques are similar, with the direction being symmetrical. We'll start with the left front piece, which is divided into 3 sections, Section 1, Section 2, and the neck and shoulder area. For the Section 1, follow the chart to knit the intarsia pattern. In Section 2, start by increasing stitches on the left side. Then, work the corresponding pattern for the front band. On the right side, knit the intarsia pattern, and decrease at the corresponding positions. Continue the front band for the left side of the neck and shoulder. And work German short rows on the right side at the same time, to shape the shoulder. After completion, join it to the back body. Finish the remaining rows for the front band. Then stop. Sew it to the corresponding position on the back body. The new stitch techniques used include: make 1 left leaning increase, knit 1 stitch through the back loop, cable TBL pattern, SKPO, and knit 2 stitches together. Let me demonstrate the specific knitting method. The process of Section 1 of the front body is similar as the back body, just with different stitch counts and rows. Refer to the previous demonstration and the pattern chart to finish it, until the last row of Section 1. I've already completed my sample. Now, let's knit the final row of Section 1. This row will be worked on the wrong side of the fabric. Start with color 1, knit 1, and purl 1. Switch to color 3 and work the corresponding number of stitches. Check the pattern chart. In the next row, you'll use color 1 for the pattern of the front band. Here, the yarn tail of color 1 is quite far from the starting position of the front band. While working with color 3, you need to carry color 1 to its corresponding position. Purl 3 stitches with color 3. Then, carry color 1 over color 3 once. Continue with 3 more purl stitches. Carry color 1 again. Purl 2 more stitches. Carry color 1 once more. Purl 1. Gently stretch the fabric. Take a look. Color 1 should now be in place. Stretch the fabric and the carried yarn. For the next rows, switch to this color 1 and work the corresponding pattern. Before knitting, trap color 3. Refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern. Finish this row. With a knit stitch at last. This row is now completed. The last row of section 1 is done. Now, move on to section 2. For the first row, refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern. Knit the corresponding number of stitches for the pattern. I finished my sample. Switch to color 1 and work the front band. Knit 1. Trap color 3. Then, work at M1L. Let's take a look. Between the two braid-like stitches in the fabric, there is a thwartwise strand like this. AM1L involves picking up this strand and knit 1. First, use the left needle to pick up the strand from front to back. Then, insert the right needle through the back loop of this stitch. Knit. Let's check it out. Here, we've increased 1 stitch. The texture twists like this. Continue with 1 knit stitch. Then, work another M1L. Pick up the strand with the left needle. Insert the right needle through the back loop of this stitch. Knit. And there you have another increased stitch. Keep going, following the chart. Knit a combination of stockinette stitches and M1L to finish this row. My sample has fewer stitches here. Row 1 is completed. Move on to row 2. We'll work this row on the wrong side. The first symbol is for a purl stitch. So, knit 1 stitch here. The second symbol indicates a K1 TBL, so we P1 TBL here. Bring the yarn to the front, above the right needle. Insert the right needle from back to front, through the back loop. Pull. And there, a P1 TBL is completed. Check the wrong side of the fabric. You'll see a twisty braid. Then knit 1. Bring the yarn back below the right needle. Knit 1. Then, make another P1 TBL. Bring the yarn above the right needle. When alternating between knit and purl stitches, remember to wrap the yarn before each stitch. To avoid creating extra stitches, I won't repeat it again. Insert the right needle through the back loop. Pull. That P1 TBL is completed. Continue with a knit stitch. And another P1 TBL. Repeat these pattern until you reach 1 loop before the color 3 on the left. My sample has fewer stitches, so don't use it as a reference. Now, when you get to this point, use color 1 to knit a stitch. This row of front band is finished. Change to color 3 and purl 1. While knitting, trap color 1 slightly. From here, follow the chart 2. Finish the intarsia pattern of this row. Row 2 is completed. Move on to row 3. First, follow the chart to work the intarsia pattern until reaching the front band. Here it is. Switch back to color 1 and purl 1. Since color 3 will be needed again later with a few distance, you can safely break the yarn here. Tie a knot securely. Then, make a K1 TBL with color 1. Insert the needle from front to back, through the back loop. Knit. A K1 TBL is done. Purl 1. Make another K1 TBL. Insert the needle from front to back through the back loop. Wrap the yarn and draw out. This K1 TBL is done. Besides referring to the chart, you can also work according to the texture. If the next stitch looks like a tile, make a purl stitch. If it's a twisty braid, K1 TBL. Continue with this alternation of purl stitch and K1 TBL stitch. Finish this row. Knit the last loop. Row 3 is now finished. Move on to row 4. At the front band, alternate 1 knit stitch with P1 TBL stitch. After completing the front band pattern, although you'll continue with color 1 for the intarsia pattern, switch to another color 1 in this specific position. When switching from color 1, gently trap it. Follow the chart to finish the intarsia pattern. In this row, row 4 is now completed. Proceed to row 5. First, refer to the chart and finish the intarsia pattern until you reach the 2 loops before the front band. I finished my sample. Now, slip one stitch knit-wise, knit next stitch, pass slipped stitch over. We'll call it SKP. Slip the next stitch knit-wise with the right needle, without working, then knit one. Then, pick up the slipped stitch with the left needle. Pass it over the left stitch, and slip it off the needle. At SKP, is now completed. Switch to color 1 for the front band. Purl 1. And K1 TBL. Repeat the corresponding number of times. In my sample, there are fewer stitches. After completing this, purl 1 more. Then work a cable TBL pattern. This pattern uses 5 stitches. And you'll need a cable needle for this. First, slip the first loop onto the right needle. Then take a cable needle. Transfer and hold the next 3 loops from the left needle. Move them to the center. Now place the cable needle behind the workpiece. Move the first loop back onto the left needle. Pick up the next loop on the left with the right needle on the front. Release the 2 loops on the left needle. Move the first loop back through on behind. Slip the loop on the right needle back onto the left needle. Now these 2 loops have switched places, with the left one on the top. Make a K1 TBL. Then knit the stitches on the cable needle. Purl 1. Followed by a K1 TBL stitch. And another purl stitch. Then, K1 TBL from the left needle. That completes the cable TBL pattern. Now, continue knitting alternating purls and K1 TBL stitches according to the texture. Finish with a knit stitch. Row 5 is completed. For rows 6 to row 8. Follow the chart for the corresponding pattern. Finish these rows on your own. Move on to row 9. Start by finishing the intarsia pattern according to the chart, until you reach 2 stitches before the right edge of the front band. My sample has reached this point. Knit at SKP, slip the next stitch knit-wise with the right needle. Then, knit 1. Then, pick up the slipped stitch with the left needle. And pass it over the left stitch. The SKP, is done. Switch the yarn. Alternate purl stitches and K1 TBL stitches according to the texture. End the row with a knit stitch. Row 9 is finished. For row 10, continue the pattern of the front band and the intarsia pattern of the body section. Finish this row on your own. Move on to row 11. Finish the intarsia pattern according to the chart first, until just before the front band. Don't forget to place a marker on the first loop. My sample is done. Now switch to color 1 for the front band. Alternate purl stitches and K1 TBL stitches, according to the texture pattern. My sample has fewer stitches here. Then work a cable TBL pattern. Slip the first loop onto the right needle. Transfer the following 3 loops onto the cable needle and hold them. Move the first loop back onto the left needle. Pick up the next loop on the left with the right needle on the front. Release the 2 loops on the left needle. Move the first loop back through on behind. Slip the loop on the right needle back onto the left one. Make a K1 TBL. Then knit the stitches on the cable needle. Purl 1. K1 TBL. And purl 1 more. Then, K1 TBL from the left needle. The cable TBL pattern is now complete. Continue knitting alternating purls and K1 TBL stitches according to the texture. Finish this row with a knit stitch. Row 11 is finished. For the remaining part of section 2, follow the pattern chart. Work the corresponding pattern at the front band and the intarsia pattern at the body. Decrease stitches on the corresponding rows. Decreases are always worked on the right side, 2 loops from the front band edge. Now, move on to the neck and shoulder area. Shape the right shoulder by working back and forth in German short rows. Use the same method as on the right side of the back body. Continue knitting the front band pattern on the left side. After completing the intarsia pattern, finish the remaining part with color 1. Refer to the chart and follow the previous demonstration to complete row 11 of the neck and shoulder. Let's take a look. This is the sample showing the first 11 rows of body sections, neck and shoulder of the left front piece. When working the row 12 of the neck and shoulder of the left front piece, you'll need to join it to the corresponding position on the back body. I'll demonstrate the specific joining technique with these 2 samples. Place the 2 pieces with their right sides facing each other. Position the back body with its wrong side towards you. The yarn tail of the front body should be on your right hand. We'll use the bind-off method to join the loops of both pieces together. Hold the yarn tail in your right hand. Insert the right knitting needle from front to back, going through both 2 loops on the front and back body. Knit them together. Insert the needle through both 2 loops again. Knit them together. Then bind off 1 stitch. That's how you join the 2 pieces together. For the remaining stitches, always insert the needle through both 2 loops on the 2 pieces. Knit them together. Bind off 1 stitch. Bind off them all. When you reach the last loop at the body section, purl 1 stitch. At the front band, bind off 1 more stitch. Then finish this row of the front band according to the pattern. Row 12 of the neck and shoulder is finished. These 2 pieces are now joined together. Continue working back and forth along the front band, according to the pattern chart, until the corresponding number of rows are completed. During the process, you need to check the back neck as you work. When the front band's length matches half the length of the back neck, that's perfect. Finish on the wrong side. Leave a tail about 3 times the front band's length above the neck and shoulder area, then cut off. Hold the loops. Let's take a look. This is what the completed left front sample looks like. Next, sew the sides of the front and back body. Sewing takes place on the right side. Place the 2 pieces with their wrong sides facing each other. Align the side edges of the 2 pieces. Combine the 2 markers at the same position into one. This marks the end point for sewing. My sample has fewer rows here. I only demonstrate the technique. The marker placement isn't for reference. Secure the edges of the 2 fabric pieces with a marker at the cast-on edge. This is the starting point for the sewing. Then, between these 2 stitch markers, choose evenly spaced points, and put on markers. Be mindful when doing this, don't stretch the piece. Let's take a look. Along the edge, there are small horizontal knots like this. Inside each knot, there are 2 horizontal strands. The sewing is done on the right side of the fabric, picking up these strands. When sewing, you need to combine 3 threads in corresponding color for actually sewing. I'll continue with 1 thread for demonstration. In random colors, cut a yarn tail about 1 meter long, thread it into a sewing needle. Insert the needle from back to front. Picking up 1 strand at the marked position, on the bottom of the front piece. Pass through. Gently pull the yarn outward. Leave about 10 centimeters tail. Don't pull it all the way out. Now, locate the corresponding spot on the back body. Also, insert the needle from front to back. Pick up the strand on the left of this stitch and sew. Give it a slight tightening. Be mindful when pulling. Pinch the reserved yarn tail with your left hand to prevent it from coming out. Continue picking up a strand above the stitch you've just sewed. From the front piece, then, pick up the corresponding spot on the back body. And sew. That's how it works for sewing the front and back body. Keep sewing upwards until you reach this stitch marker position. Make sure to pull the sewing tails tight every other space. While doing so, pinch the reserved yarn tail. Throughout the sewing process, double-check the number of strands at the corresponding spots on both fabric pieces. If they're not equal, adjust immediately. You can pick up the piece with fewer strands first. Sew this side with 1 strand. To the other side with 2 strands. If you encounter unequal numbers of strands later, follow this adjustment method. I won't repeat this again. Continue sewing this edge until it's complete. After sewing, bring the yarn tails to the wrong side of the fabric. Secure them by weaving through loops and tying a knot. Simply hide any excess yarn tails. Tuck in the previously reserved yarn tails, along with the remaining tails, using the same technique to secure them. And just like that, the front and back body are sewn together on this side. This opening here is for the sleeve. As you can see, this is how it will look once the side seam of the sample is finished. Now, we'll knit the right front. Same as the left front. It's also divided into 3 sections, Section 1, Section 2, and the neck and shoulder area. For Section 1, follow the pattern chart to knit the intarsia pattern. In Section 2, increase on the corresponding row on the right side. Then, work the front band pattern. Continue with the intarsia pattern on the left side. The method is same as the left front. All the required techniques have been demonstrated before. So, refer to the pattern chart and the previous demonstration to work until you reach the 5th row in Section 2. My sample is already complete. Now, work the 5th row. First, refer to the chart and knit the front band pattern. After that, switch to color 2 for the body. Cut about 1 meter of color 2 yarn. Join the yarn. Then, knit 2 stitches together. We'll call it K2 tog. Insert the right needle from left to right, both through the 2 loops on the left needle. Knit. And that completes the K2 tog. Now, switch to color 3 and knit the corresponding number of stitches. While working, gently trap color 2. Follow the chart to finish the intarsia pattern of this row. Row 5 is now finished. The remaining part of the right front piece will be worked in the same way as the left front piece. Make sure the positioning is symmetrical. Everybody, refer to the chart and the previous demonstration. Continue knitting until you complete the 11th row of the neck and shoulder. On the 12th row of the neck and shoulder, bind off at the corresponding position with the back body. I'll demonstrate this with a small sample. Knit this row on the right side of the fabric. First, work the front band pattern according to the chart. Stop after completing the front band. Then, transfer all the remaining loops on the left needle onto the right needle. Place the right front and the right shoulder of the back body, with their right sides facing each other. Align the tops. Have the wrong side of the right front piece facing you? Using the yarn tail from the back body, pick up and bind off both front and back loops simultaneously. Join the front and back shoulder sections together. The technique is the same as the left side. After binding off all the loops, there should be one loop remaining on the right needle. Enlarge this loop. Remove the needle. Leave a 10 cm tail. Before cutting, thread the tail through the loop. Pull it tightly. Take out the sewing needle. Thread the yarn tail into the sewing needle. And weave it into the wrong side of the fabric by its texture. Row 12 now completed. And the two pieces are joined. For the remaining part of the neck and shoulder, work the front band pattern back and forth until the corresponding number of rows. During the process, you need to check the back neck as you go. When the front band's length matches half the length of the back neck, it's done. Finish on the wrong side. Then, also leave a tail about 3 times the front band's length above the neck and shoulder area, then cut off. Now, let's take a look. This is what the completed right front sample looks like. Next, join the edges of front band of the left front and right front. Move the held stitches from the left front bands back onto a circular needle. With the right sides facing each other. Align the top edges of the two pieces. Place the already joined shoulder seam on the left. Be careful not to twist the fabric pieces. Use the reserved yarn tail on the right side to pick up the loops from both pieces simultaneously. Join them together. You should have one loop left at the end. Enlarge this loop. Thread the remaining yarn tail through it. Give it a gentle tug to tighten. And there, the front band is now attached. Next, sew the front band to the back neck opening. Align the edge of the front band with the edge of the back neck opening. Align the point where they connect with the center of the holding stitches of the back body. Place a stitch marker to secure it. Then, choose a few points evenly spaced on either side of the neck opening. Mark these points with stitch markers. Make sure to keep the fabric flat as you work. Now, take the yarn tail reserved from the front band and thread it into a sewing needle. Sew from the middle outwards towards the sides. Start by sewing the left side. Insert the sewing needle from front to back through the holding stitch which is the first loop on the left of the stitch marker on the back body. Then, insert the needle from back to front through the second loop. Give it a gentle tug to tighten. Then, pick up the strands on the corresponding position on the front band. Pull the yarn through. Needle go from front to back through the loop you just exited. Then insert the needle from back to front through next two loops on the left. Again, pick up the strands on the corresponding position on the front band and sew. Continue this way, matching each loop and strand on the front band. When picking up loops, always go through the loop you exited previously first. Then the next two loops on the left side. Finish the holding stitches of the back neck. When complete, continue to pick up the strands along the side of the back body and sew to the remaining part of the front band. Once everything is sewn, bring the yarn tail to the wrong side of the fabric. Tie it off securely and hide the knot. The back neck edge is now attached to the front band. You can simply pull out the waste yarn for holding stitches. With the same method, symmetrically sew the other side. Start by inserting the needle from front to back through the last loop on the left side of the back body. Then, go through the 2 loops on the left side. Continue with the same technique. Sew all the way down this side. Let's take a look. This is how it looks like after sewing. The front band and the back neck of this sample. Next, follow the same steps as before, and join the sides of the front and back body together. Up to this point, the tutorial for the front body is done.